I want to start off with a disclaimer, just so nobody sues me. I know it sounds funny, but I live in America, so it's all about suing. So my disclaimer is I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I don't pretend to be one. Please consult with your doctor, your medical professional provider. I'm just sharing my personal experience with you of what worked for me, and it may or may not work for you. And so thank you for taking the time. And I thank you not for me, because I personally don't need this. I'm already fully healed. I have a job, I have a life. I have my kid. I have everything I need. So I thank you not for me, but I thank you because you're doing something for yourself. This is a sign and an act of self-love. And I know that our topic is about self-love, but you are doing something that's loving for you. And so I applaud you. I commend you for doing this, for showing up. And somehow and I thank you for trusting me a little bit with this process. So thank you for that. But you're doing this for you. And you should acknowledge that you love yourself and that you're doing this for you. That's very important. And I also want to state that long COVID, the healing of long COVID is a large puzzle. And, you go to those, the stores, we used to go back in the days, Toys R Us, the Lego store, they have these large puzzles, incredible. Some of them are even 3D puzzles. And healing from long COVID is truly a 3D puzzle. So this 3D puzzle, one of the puzzle pieces for causing this big puzzle piece is healing long COVID, my new life. But one piece, we have to focus on each piece and master each piece of this puzzle. And when you do, and you get them all together, that's when you cause healing. So the only puzzle we're going to talk about right now today is self-love. That's all we're going to talk about. So please, don't feel discouraged if you're listening to it. It's like, oh, I'm not, I didn't heal from just listening to this. You're not going to heal from one puzzle. You need to now look at mindset. You need to now look at polyvagal exercise. You need to now look at enjoying life. There's different puzzles you need to look at to cause healing. So don't feel discouraged if you're listening to this and you said, oh, I didn't just heal. Or maybe you only saw my video on polyvagal exercise. You said in your head, I did the breathing. It didn't work. Please be patient with yourself and have love. Be loving towards yourself and be compassionate towards yourself. All right, sorry, there's some people still joining, so I'm just letting them in. Okay, so keep that in mind. Please, this self-love is just one puzzle. And I want to restate, if it wasn't clear enough, because I have people messaging me and I think they're not really clear on it. I want to restate that I truly believe that the cause of long COVID is an overactive or very sensitive nervous system. And the polyvagal theory framework provides this. So I believe that. So some people will message me and say, hey, do you believe I take these supplements? Does it help? Or they ask me a million questions. No, I do not, because I personally healed myself from the polyvagal theory standpoint. And I healed myself fully. So I don't know if you hear someone else saying supplements, I'm not part of that world. So, I may not be the person you relate with, the coach that you need, but I wanted to clarify that. And that's okay. I'm not everybody's coach in a sense, right? Because when I'm on my YouTube videos, I'm technically coaching and teaching what I've learned. So maybe my YouTube video are not for everybody. So I just want to clarify that. I truly believe that it comes from an overactive nervous system. Okay. All right. Just letting some people in. Okay. All right. So I created this class because I learned so much. I kept hearing about this self-love. What is self-love? And what's so important about self-love, and what does it have to do with long COVID? Because for me, I wanted to heal from long COVID, from this terrible disease. I wanted nothing to do with this life of long COVID. And I just said, what do I need to do? I need a pill. I need a million things. And you start listening to people who've recovered, and they talk about self-compassion and self-love. And I had to dig deeper and say, well, what is this self-love? Because if it's what I need to heal, I'll do it, because my life is worth it, right? I think most of you guys are here for that same reason. Okay, so part one, we're going to have 5 parts to this beautiful presentation, okay? I'm going to do my best to present it well. My wife helped me with the scripting, so don't forget to thank my beautiful wife. So the first part we're going to talk about is what is self-love? And it's very simple. And a lot of people think, oh, self-love is this complicated thing. And it's complicated because you don't understand it. All right. I kind of want to put that out there. Most of us don't understand what self-love is. So I'm going to give you the definition of self-love, and you're going to say, that didn't help, Rob. That didn't help. And so I'm going to give you the definition. The definition of love, let's look at love, is deep affection. What's affection? Affection is defined as the feeling of fondness or liking. So self-love would be deep fondness of self or deep liking. Whoa. So when people don't understand self-love because it sounds very woo-woo, look, I'm a guy. I know a lot, most of you here, I'm looking, there's some guys here, but mostly are women. Women are very emotional beings, and I love that about them. My wife is very emotional in a great way, but for a man, that causes a lot of problems and weaknesses, right? And we don't believe, we're like, oh, they're emotional. We're like, oh, we want to be manly, you know, let's go to work, let's do this. And that becomes toxic. And so we want to really understand what self-love is, okay? And self-love is not this woo-woo idea. Self-love is, I'm going to give it to you in 2 words for everyone to be able to understand it. Self-love is self-like. Let's say that again. Self-love is self-like. Do you like yourself? Really think about that. Do you like yourself? And so that's the first part. That's the definition of self-love, self-like. It's more digestible, self-like. Do I like myself? It's yes or no. But we're going to find out if we do. We're going to take a small quiz. I want everybody to answer these questions in their minds. You don't have to chat, none of that. You're going to answer these questions in your mind. Okay. We're going to do a small test. The second part of this presentation is, do you love yourself? Do you like yourself? And so when we hear about self-love and self-like, it's such a new idea. And we're like, okay, well, I get deep like, you know, I self-love, self-like, you know, I kind of get it. All right. Yeah, I like myself, you know, I buy myself nice things, and I want to make sure I make money. And yeah, I like myself. I'm alive. I like myself. I eat. I'm good. Well, we're going to take a small quiz right here. Do not answer these in the chat. These are privately just for yourself. We're just letting somebody else in. So we want to make sure we're going to take a small quiz right now to find out if you love or like yourself. You guys are ready? There's a few questions here. Just think about it. Take time to just think about it to yourself. Okay, here we go. What do you think or say to yourself when you look in the mirror? What do you think or say to yourself when you look in the mirror? Do you speak up when people at work, family member, friends bully you? Do you speak up at work, home, family, friends, when they try to bully you, maybe put you down? Do you speak up? What do you say or think when you fail at a goal or a task? It could be a chore, it could be something small, it could be something big. What do you say or think when you fail at that thing? When a friend or a colleague is promoted, or they're doing better in life in some way, maybe you're single, they got married and you think that's better, or maybe they got promoted and financially they're getting more money than you, they're doing better than you. Do you compare yourself? Do you compare yourself? And what are the thoughts that come up? Are you okay spending time alone with your thoughts? Or do you try to run away by overworking, over entertaining, pretty much doing anything else but sitting still and thinking and allowing yourself being with your thoughts? Is it hard for you to turn your phone off and meditate? Is it hard to turn off the TV and just meditate for a few minutes? Just do nothing. Do a breathing exercise. Do you find it pointless? Do you find it pointless? You say, wow, this meditation is pointless. Doing nothing is pointless. Do you ever add more time in your day to do things you enjoy, right? Sometimes we think that the things that we enjoy, we find it pointless. Do you add more things? Probably not. Do you feel guilt for having fun and just doing it out of enjoyment? Do you feel guilt for having fun and just doing something for enjoyment? Do you feel that you don't work hard, you will be left behind? Do you feel that if you don't work hard, you'll be left behind? Do you believe that hard work means you must suffer to be effective? Do you feel that hard work requires to be suffering for it to be good, to be effective, for you to earn something? Do you enjoy your job? Do you enjoy your job, or do you enjoy the circumstance you're in, or do you hate it? Do you hate that job or hate in whatever circumstance you're in? Depending how you answer those questions, you may get an idea if you practice self-love or self-like. I hope those questions and really reflecting on it gave you some insight to think, man, maybe I lack self-love. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. Something else to look at, to find out, we're trying to dig in and do I love myself? Do I truly love myself? We're going to look at certain personality traits. And I know I'm big on this. A lot. Some people tell me they're not type A. If you're not type A, ignore this and follow the other advice from everything, from my other presentation. But most of us are extremely type A. And what is type A personality? Type A personality is someone who is perfectionistic, someone who's extremely driven to accomplish things. They need to do more, bigger things. I remember I did a half marathon. The half marathon wasn't enough. I did a marathon, and the marathon wasn't enough. I did an ultra marathon, and a half Ironman, which is a triathlon race, is not enough. I had to do the full Ironman race. You constantly need to achieve more. Maybe your career, it's not just good enough to be here. You need to work more. You make yourself anxious. I got to do more. Are you a people pleaser? And we're going to go into more into people pleasing, but you a people pleaser? Are you constantly worried what other people think about you? And this is tough because some of you may say, no, I don't, because I need to just worry about me, and I need to keep honing my mission. I need to keep working in my career. I don't care what you think. But in your mission, let's say your mission is your career, your boss, the colleagues at work, do you care what they think? Do you care what they think? You may not care what strangers think or what other people outside your circle think, but people within your circle or your mission, do you care what they think? Are you constantly making sure that they're never displeased by you? Are you extremely competitive? Are you extremely impatient? Got to get this done now. I need to get it done. Are you a control freak? You want to make everything in your life predictable, because if you don't, you feel scared and anxious. You're like, no, I need to know that I have this week scheduled out perfectly and that I have everything arranged. Are you a control freak? Are you extremely sensitive to criticism? Are you extremely sensitive to criticism? Do you need constant reassurance? Do you need your boss or somebody in your life to constantly reassure you? These personality traits may seem loving because, and we're going to speak about it, because of the validation. They may seem loving, and I'm going to explain that why. The problem with these personality traits is that the society that we live, the culture that we live in, these personality traits are we believe. These are the personality traits that are needed to be successful in life. And so your boss, it can be your spouses, it could be your spouse, your relationships around you, your friends, your family, they all want you to be successful. So they're living by the rules of what society sets up for us. And if society's and your boss says you need to be this and you need to accomplish everything, you need to be pushing and be type A. And when you are type A, guess what they do? They praise you. They acknowledge you. And so you inside continue to pursue this acknowledgement. So you keep seeking validation through the external world. You want higher salary, higher promotion, more financial success. It could be other successes in other endeavors. And school does the same thing. School and work, they praise us for having these toxic personality traits. And that's why, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. That's why long COVID was a blessing for me. And I know you don't feel that way right now. I don't. I know you don't. Because if someone told me long COVID was a blessing when I had long COVID, I probably want to punch them in the face. Right. So I totally get it. All right. So I'm sorry. I'm not trying to offend you by saying this. I want to share my perspective so that you can have a glimpse of what it's going to be like when you heal, when you don't give up. And long COVID was a huge blessing because I noticed I was living a life, a toxic life, a life that wasn't mine. I was living a life for the people around me. I wasn't living for myself. And we're going to go into more of this. The other part of digging in to see if you have self-love or you lack it, your self-talk. And those questions that I asked before, your thoughts and your self-talk are pretty much the same. I consider them to be the same because whatever you're thinking, it's whatever you're telling yourself. So your self-talk and your thoughts are the same. So really becoming aware of your self-talk. Like when I asked, if you look in the mirror, what do you tell yourself? I know when I looked in the mirror, I know what I used to tell myself. I used to say, wow, you're fat. Oh my God, you're so out of shape. Look at you with long COVID. You gained so much weight. Oh my God, you're lazy. You're disgusting. You're not worthy of love. You're not worthy of anything. Go sit back down on the couch. That's what I used to tell myself. And the sad part is, I know I'm not the only one. And sometimes we're so unaware of what we're telling ourselves. So please become aware of what you're saying. I berated myself, right? Like I talked about the overweight. I used to talk to myself about my career. When my boss wanted me to do this and that, I'm like, Rob, you got to do it. I was hypercritical of myself and I could hear it in my talk. I could hear it in my emotions. I would make myself anxious. And I'm like, why am I anxious? Why am I beating myself up over and over this? Why am I doing this to myself? And it's because of lack of self-love. When something goes wrong, what do you tell yourself? Those questions, again, we reflected on our self-talk. When something goes wrong in your life, it doesn't go as planned. What do you think and what do you tell yourself? Do you sometimes think that people around you deserve a better life? I'll be honest, I thought that. I used to see other people at work, they would live better lives than me. And I'm like, you know what? They deserve it, but I don't. I need to keep working harder at it. I'm too lazy. Do you say how stupid you are? Do you call yourself stupid? You call yourself names? You say you're dumb? You're not good enough? That's all signs of lack of self-love. And if you have any of this, you have any of these things, this will help you. You need to continue doing work and self-love. And let me tell you, doing this presentation is not the cure. I am just putting information in your mind. You need to now meditate and think about that knowledge that I give you. And hopefully I can provide a lot of value. You want to listen to your thoughts when challenges arise. When you want to find out when is the perfect opportunity to become aware of my self-talk or thoughts, it's when challenges arrive. And you know what? You having long COVID, you have challenges every single hour of your life, right? The brain fog, the chronic fatigue, the dizziness, the pot-like symptoms, not being able to cognitively think well, memory loss. Maybe you have the shakiness. I had these constant shaking. I had excess urination when I would lay down for no reason. I have these, my body temperature would dysregulate. I had PTSD, had all these issues. When these challenges arrive, what are you thinking? Ask yourself that. What are you thinking? Now we're going to get into the third part of this. And this is important, and we're kind of veering a little bit off. But now that we asked ourselves, we looked at our self-talk, we looked at our personality traits, we asked the quiz to find out, do I love myself? At this point, you should be telling yourself, giving yourself an answer. Either I do love myself or I don't love myself. And if you don't love yourself, how can I love myself? And we'll get into that in the next part. But right now, I kind of want to add to this. If you aren't loving yourself, then what are you doing? If you're not practicing self-love, what are you practicing? And for my third part, I called it, you are living a lie. It's very important. You are living a lie. I hope that gets your attention. If you aren't living a life of self-love, what kind of life are you living? And then we start asking ourselves, well, what is the opposite of self-love? What is the opposite of self-love? There's two things that came up into my mind. There's a life, some therapists call it the self-love deficit. That's okay. I like that name, self-love deficit. I feel like it's not strong enough. So if you don't have self-love, you're practicing the other side of that coin, which is a life of self-hatred. And you'll hear this by the way you speak to yourself, the way you berate yourself, the way you talk to yourself, you humiliate yourself. Those self-talk, the self-talk that you have and those self-thoughts that you have, you would never, in a million years, you would never go up to a friend of yours who's suffering and talk to them that way. When they fail at work, when they don't get a promotion, when they can't accomplish certain things at home because of long COVID, you would never say to them the things you say to yourself. You would never call them lazy. If your friend comes up to you and say, hey, Rob, I feel so fat, I feel so overweight, I don't like my body. You would never say, yeah, you're lazy. Go get on a diet. Go suffer more. You would never say that to yourself. Yet you do it to yourself. And that is a form of self-hatred. And what's the second term I use for the opposite of self-love? Self-hatred is one. The second one, a life of other love. I'm going to repeat that again. A life of other love. You got that? I don't know if you guys got that. The life of other love. So the opposite of self-love for me really is other love. I started noticing when I started doing this self-love work, I started noticing that the life I was living was not the life that I wanted. You will notice that the current life that you have, the job you have, the relationship you created, the things that you have around you may not be the life that you wanted. And this is so hard to do. This is so hard to acknowledge. This is so hard to understand. This is not easy because you feel like such a failure. You're like, wow, if I lived all these years of my life not loving myself and living a life for someone else, you just like, wow, just wasted all that time. And that's where mindset works. You don't want to allow yourself to talk to yourself that way. Right now, I want you to become aware that you're living a life that you may not want. It may not be your whole life, but it may be parts of your life. It may just be your job. It may be just a friendship that you have. It may be aspects of your life that you will have. Remember, you're living other love. That means that you do everything else for everyone else around you to the point of neglecting yourself. Other love means that you live a life to please everyone else around you to the point that you commit self-hatred on yourself, to the point that you neglect your true self inside. It wasn't easy for me to realize this. So this is where I want to go a little bit. I want to touch a little bit on inner child. I don't want to go deep in this, so I'm just going to brush up for the purpose of this explanation. So I want to explain a little bit of what inner child is. So I'm not sure if you've heard of inner child or therapists use it. Inner child is a part of us that is frozen in the past when we have certain traumas that have occurred to us. So for example, for me, I remember my father yelling at me when I wasn't perfect, when I made mistakes. He would make me do construction work with him when I was very young. I remember touching tools at like 5, 6 years old. And I remember my dad taught me how to use tools. And I remember that whenever I messed up on drilling a screw or hammering a nail, I remember he would yell at me. He would berate me and embarrass me, humiliate me. I just want to say I love my father to death. He's a good man. He's done so much good for me. He is unaware of this. But that part of us, so that inner child is now stuck in that time in the past. And that child in the past, because it never emotionally matured, it is constantly seeking validation from our parents. So I want to say, if you grow up in an extremely healthy household, your parents should build up your self-esteem. They are reflecting to you what you should do to yourself. Okay, so I want to repeat that again. So our parents should, most of us didn't do 100% great job. So that's why we're still, some of us are a little bit stuck, and that's okay. But our parents in a healthy household should reflect to us how we should treat ourselves. That's why it's important with our children to say, we love you, you're loved, you're amazing, you're strong. A lot. And in my culture, that's spoiling a kid. That's a bad thing. You should be disciplinary. You should be critical of the kid. And that's wrong. So what ends up happening, we grew up as adults, but that inner child inside of us continues to be stuck, and it continues to believe and seek validation for our parents. The problem is that as adults, we no longer have our parents around us, and we may still seek for our parents' approval, but now our parents becomes our boss, becomes our goals, becomes our dreams. And so we start talking to ourselves the way our parents spoke to us, and we're doing it as adults. And, you know, sometimes we don't want to talk about the inner child. We don't want to talk about our emotions. We do everything to avoid talking about the emotions that we have, the trauma that we've gone through. And let me tell you, I know that there's some movies in the past I used to watch in the past, and it's a mafia movie or it's a movie about some gangsters. And, you know, there's this guy, and this guy, you know, he's the character's problem. He's like, man, this guy, he's going to kill me, or he's going to tell the boss. And if he tells the boss is going to kill me. And so I need to handle this guy. So you know what I'm going to do in the movies? They'll kill him. They kill the guy. They shoot him or they kill him. Like, he's gone. My problem's done. You know what happens? Now, when you shoot the person, you have a body to deal with. And now they're like, you know, in the movies, they take the body, they try to bury the body, and then the body starts smelling. Then there's birds going to the body. Then there's dogs going to the body. Like, oh my God, what do I do with this body? So you take it and you throw it in the ocean. Now the body floats. And the guy's like, oh my God, I got to go take a boat, pick up the body. What am I going to do? Your trauma is the same way. The more you try to hide your trauma and the more you try to avoid it, the more it stinks. The more you try to hide it, the more it stinks. And it's important to deal with these things because we have long COVID. And I'll get into that. So now we're in the fourth part. How is my lack of self-love affecting my long COVID recovery? And I think this is the questions everybody asking, right? How is my lack of self-love? How is that affecting my recovery, Rob? You know, I don't really care about self-love. I think some of you guys are getting the point and the importance of having self-love. But some of you may think, what's the point? I want to just heal. How can we, and I'm going to ask this question, how can we heal ourselves from long COVID when our self-talk and our thoughts are so negative and are so abusive to ourselves? Let me tell you, if someone was healing from a disease, maybe they had cancer and they're on remission and they're weak, someone has long COVID, would you go to them and tell them all the things you tell yourself every single day? Will you tell them, hey, look at you, you're a failure. Look, you can't exercise, you're not good enough, you can't support your family. What are you doing? You're an embarrassment. Would you talk to that person that way? And if you were to talk to that person that way, do you think they would have an easier or a harder time of recovering? Do you think you would have an easier or harder time of recovering? Can you prevent someone from recovering if you were to talk to them that way? If you abuse them verbally that way? And so the problem is that we do this to ourselves in this journey of long COVID. And the reason why is because we have certain standards from before, and we are complete failures by those standards. You can't exercise. You can't work like you used to. You can't make more money. Let's say you're working, but you want to make more money. Guess what? You can't make more money. You can't do more work. Maybe you can't even work. I couldn't work when I had long COVID. Then I started trying to pick up one shift a week for 7 hours because we just needed the money. Our savings was dwindling. We had to start maxing out our credit cards. I couldn't go grocery shopping. I couldn't drive. I couldn't drive. I was trying to drive one day to my best friend's house. I really needed to speak to him, and he lives an hour away. He lives a little bit far. And some days I could drive and some days I couldn't. And I remember trying to drive, and within 15 minutes, I had to pull off the highway and I had to pull to the side, and I just broke down crying. And I broke down and I texted him. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't make it. I broke down because my fatigue was so severe. I was getting so sleepy. Like the fatigue was really bad. When my fatigue was really bad, it's really, you just become sleepy all the time and you never feel rested. And I remember feeling this sense of failure. I lost all my dignity. And so the problem is that by our old standards, by that self-hatred standard, we're constantly failing as human beings. And we think that by beating ourselves up, we think that by treating ourselves the way our parents did, that that's the cure. We believe that if we beat ourselves more, if we humiliate ourselves more, if we berate ourselves more, if we work out more, exercise more, force ourselves to run, that we will somehow cause healing. And the opposite is true. You need to surrender. And this is so hard because we are so used to by the self-hatred paradigm that we used to live by. We're constantly moving forward in life because we're constantly seeking external validation. And now after I talk to you about self-love, you're like, I don't know what to do. What kind of life do I live? If I'm no longer seeking external validation by the outside world, how do I move forward in life? And there's a period, there's a phase of grief because you're like, wow, you start noticing that everything that you were doing to yourself is so mean and so bad. And you're like, wow, I was wrong for doing that. And there's a period of grief. There's a period of not doing anything. There's a period you have to allow yourself to just be and just allow yourself to think. Get away from your to-do list. Get away from all your goals. Drop all your goals. And it just takes time of being with yourself. You haven't been with yourself because you haven't been practicing self-love. You haven't been with yourself. All you've been doing is seeking external validation, looking to please everybody else. And the problem is that because you're constantly beating yourself up and you feel like a failure, you feel like you're in danger. You feel anxious, nervous, depressed, hopeless. And you know what those emotions all do? All those emotions that are caused by self-hatred or the other love, that all causes you your symptoms. That all causes an activation of your nervous system. You can do all the polyvagal exercises you want. You can do the breathing exercises. You can do the yoga. You can do the laughing yoga. You can do meditation. You can try everything else in the world. And guess what? If you constantly berate yourself, talk to yourself negatively, abuse yourself, guess what? Your nervous system won't feel calm. You'll feel calm while doing the yoga. You'll feel calm while doing the breathing exercise for 10, 20 minutes. But after that's done, you're going to have a symptom. And guess what you're going to say to yourself? Here we go again. And this never gets better. You look in the mirror. Oh, I'm gaining weight because of long COVID. I'm disgusting. I'm lazy. So how can you heal? You know why self-love is so important? Because you live with yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. You live with yourself. So without self-love, I really believe it's extremely hard to heal. I don't know anybody from the people I've coached. I don't know anybody that caused healing or fully healed or is healing now that have not practiced self-compassion and self-love. And I don't know if you guys hear me. I keep saying practice. And let's get my next one. And we're almost done, guys. Almost done. Thank you for being with me. We're almost done. And so this is when you start realizing that you've been operating in different software. All right, you're operating on toxic software. That software is called self-hatred. Okay? Become aware of that. You are operating under the software program in your brain. It's called the self-hatred program. Think about it. When I fail, what does the self-hatred program, what would it sound like it should do? It should beat yourself up. You should humiliate yourself. You should talk negatively of yourself. That's what the self-hatred program should do. And guess what? That's what you've been operating out of. And now you need to download a new program that you're unfamiliar with. And this new program is driven by self-love, self-like, self-admiration, self-respect. And that may be so unfamiliar to you and so weird to you. And that's okay. You're on the right path. I saw this comment on a YouTube video. It wasn't my YouTube. It was one of the TEDx I watched. And the comment someone wrote, and I thought it was magnificent. And the comment I saw said, we never realize how important it is to love ourselves until we reach a point when we are about to lose ourselves. I'm going to repeat that again. We never realize how important it is to love ourselves until we reach a point when we are about to lose ourselves. And that's why with long COVID, it's a blessing, because I would have never done and changed my life around without long COVID, without this curse and blessing. Because until you, long COVID, you know what it does? It takes your life away from you. That's what it does. It takes away your life from you. And I know that when you're in it, you're thinking, oh, this is it. In reality, though, it's giving you a new life. It's giving you an opportunity to give you a new, better life. It's giving you your life, the life that you want, not a life that is for everyone else around you. We never realize how important it is to love ourselves until we reach a point where we're about to lose ourselves. I would have never picked up a book on self-love until I had long COVID, and I felt like I lost myself. And I felt like I lost everything in my life. And there's a quote from Lori Deschene. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's from, she has different Buddhist style books. And her quote says, we can't hate ourselves into a version of ourselves we can love. I'm going to repeat that. We can't hate ourselves into a version of ourselves that we can love. We can't hate ourselves. We can't hate ourselves into a version of ourselves we can love. We think that the more we berate ourselves, that we are molding ourselves into a person that we will admire. And that paradigm is absolutely flawed and incorrect. And you're living that life. And you're seeing the repercussions of it. So part 5, the last part, guys, I'm almost done. Self-love is a practice, not a feeling, and it's uncomfortable. Self-love is a practice, not a feeling, and it's uncomfortable. When I was listening and reading books about self-love, I thought it was so weird. You know, they were talking about how they look in the mirror and say, I love you, I love you. And I was like, well, what? I love, so weird. If it's weird, you're on the right path. Keep going. So the first step that I'm going to talk about, you need to hate self-hatred. It's important that you hate self-hatred. We believe that having those personality traits of that type A, we believe that we talk to ourselves so negatively, abusively. The beauty of that is that when we do those things, we accomplish things. That's the truth, that when we are type A and we are perfectionistic and we're driven, we drive ourselves to the ground, guess what? You're allowed to work 24 hours a day. You drive, you sleep 1 hour and you keep working, you will accomplish more. And so if you continue to be attached to the idea that this is a good thing, that I need to accomplish more, then you will not accept what self-love has for you. You need to first acknowledge that those things are toxic to yourself, that it is toxic. It is, look where it's gotten you. It's gotten you long COVID. You need to hate self-hatred. If you don't see that, you will not work on trying to change your personality traits. You will not work hard on self-love. The other part, you want to expose yourself to this new language. Yep, you heard me. Self-love is a new language. I'm American. I speak Spanish. My parents are from El Salvador, so I'm Spanish as well. So I speak Spanish, I speak English. And when you're exposed to a new language, it sounds so weird. My wife, my beautiful, gorgeous wife, she's Slovakian. You know, I have to say yakshimash, dobry, dobre. I have to say ahoy. I don't know what, it's so awkward for me to talk to her family members, but I put the effort in. You want to expose yourself to this new language of self-love. How do you do it? Just like you're on YouTube, just like you watch the news, Just like you research articles and videos on self-love and you read books on it, expose yourself to the language, expose yourself. The fastest way to learn a new language is by exposing yourself to people in that language. You want to learn Chinese? Go to Chinatown if you're in New York. It's a perfect place to practice. You want to learn self-love? Google every self-love book. Start reading it. Expose yourself to that new language. It will feel awkward. Please don't let this feeling of awkwardness or weirdness turn you around and leave self-love. It will feel awkward. It will feel weird to hear books and people on podcasts speak about self-love. You'll be like, what? This is weird. Yes, keep going. The third thing you can do to practice self-love. Absolutely avoid negative self-talk. Just like you hate self-hatred. You need to hate self-hatred and treating yourself so abusively. You also need to avoid and hate negative self-talk. You need to make a promise to yourself that you will not allow yourself to speak to yourself that way anymore. Think about it. If your child, who's a little child, 5 years old, you guys go to a restaurant and that child starts cursing everybody out in the restaurant, what would you say as a parent? You would say, hey, child, no, we do not do this to other people. You would take that child out of the restaurant and you would say, no, we're not going to go back in there unless you start talking nicely to people. You understand? So you need to make a promise to yourself that you will now allow yourself to speak to yourself that way. So when you see yourself in the mirror and you hear, oh my God, I'm so fat, you automatically say, no, I made a promise. I will not allow myself to talk to myself that way. You look great. Even if you don't believe it, your friend comes up to you and says, hey, I'm overweight, I'm fat. What do you think? Do I look sexy? What do you say? You don't say, yeah, buddy. Yeah, you look huge. You should probably go on a diet. No, you're like, you understand. You have compassion for that person. You say, no, you look unhealthy. Maybe we could lose some weight, but you're doing great. I love you, regardless of your weight. Talk to yourself that way. Talk to yourself nicely. Be kind to yourself. Make a promise to yourself to not allow that negative and abusive talk, that abusive self-talk. Don't allow it. Instead, whenever you have those thoughts, see yourself as an outside person. What would that outside person say to you? What would you say to someone else? And replace that with yourself. No, you look great. You look amazing. I know you feel this thing, but you tried. And that matters. Rob, you tried. You tried today. It's so great. You should celebrate that. Some of you are like, whoa, that self-love language sounds weird. It's new to you. And it's okay. You can replace this self-hatred program that we've been raised up on to this self-love program, but it will feel awkward. You want to set healthy boundaries. This is hard for me. When I healed from long COVID, I went back to work full time. It was a huge blessing for me because I was able to support my family again. And I was finally making some money and I said, oh, thank God, after a year and a half, almost 2 years of making minuscule money and really like living at the edge. I finally went to work. And the last thing I wanted to do was lose my job. And the people at work were trying to softly bully me. People at work were trying to make me do things that were not part of my role. What was extremely hard for me? And I already knew about self-love, and I knew that setting boundaries was healthy. I had to set boundaries. I had to go to those people at work and say, I'm not doing that. That's not part of my job. In the past, the old Rob, yes, whatever you need. Yes, you need this. Yes, it's not part of my role. It's okay. I go 1,000,000% more just for everybody. Yes. Even I'm neglecting myself. Yes. I do everything for everyone else. But this new program that you have of self-love, you will need to learn and practice setting healthy boundaries. You will tell these people, it's not my job. I'm so sorry, but that's not my job. I apologize if you feel a certain way, but that's not my job. And what you're doing by setting healthy boundaries, you're practicing self-love. You're practicing self-compassion, because you're saying, I right now am important. I am more important than the other people around me. My emotions matter. And doesn't mean that I'm more important, so I'm going to go abuse other people. No, that's not what it's about. But it's saying I will not let people step over my feelings and my emotions. And this is practice. I gained so much anxiety when I would set boundaries at work. I didn't just like self-love, and I was like at work and I was telling people, oh my God, I love myself. No, I don't do that. No, it was hard. I was shaking. I was anxious. I remember shaking, and I was like calling my wife, and I'm like, oh, they want me to do this at work. And then she would remind me, is that your role? I'm like, no, but they want me to do it. She's like, self-love. And I'm like, okay. So then I would go up to him and say, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. And at first you'll be very weak at it. You won't be good at it, but it's okay. You continue working on it. You continue practicing this. And then I would go step up a little bit more and say, yeah, I don't do that. That's not part of my role. I'm sorry, but I don't do that. And then I became so good at setting boundaries. I was just like this. I became the security guard of myself, because I learned to love myself so much. And I was learning to enjoy life. And I said, no. And it was this new life. And so you're going to get there, but it starts off with being not good at it. And that's okay. And you will be anxious. It's okay. Don't be afraid of your symptoms. Don't be afraid of your emotions, but learn to set those boundaries. Practice it. Practice it means it will be uncomfortable. The other step, stop seeking validation from others. You got to stop. Stop looking for others. The self-hatred program is constantly seeking validation from other people. Self-love is constantly seeking validation from yourself. What do you think about that? I think that's amazing. It's amazing that I did this. It's amazing. A lot of people in the business world think I should be charging a lot of money for this webinar. I don't know. I could be charging a certain amount. That business people could be telling me, I have friends that are in business, and they tell me, you're wasting money, you're wasting your time. But you know what? I don't seek their validation. I seek my validation. So you should too. Stop seeking validation of others. Validate yourself. And that inner child that we slightly spoke about, speak to that inner child. Listen to them. Validate them. Have compassion for them. Be empathetic towards them. Don't just say, hey, what you're feeling is crazy. No. You need to start learning to connect with that inner child. And I really don't want to get into that, because it's a therapist's job, and you can read books. I really am a big believer on self-therapy. So I really don't want to get too deep into that. Stop saying sorry. Stop saying sorry. Stop saying sorry to everybody. I remember I would say sorry to this. Oh, I'm so sorry at this. I'm so sorry for this. I'm so sorry. People would tell me, oh, shouldn't you be doing this? Shouldn't be doing, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Stop saying sorry. You can say sorry when you're like, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry you feel that way. Stop saying sorry. This is that perfectionistic side of us. Get away from that idea. Learn to love yourself. And the last one, guys, I'm almost done. This is the last one. The hardest one out of all of practicing self-love. It is a practice. You need to learn it. It's a process. It's show up for yourself. This is the hardest and yet the most rewarding part of all this. You're used to living a life and fighting for a life that's pleasing everybody else around you. And you neglect the person inside of you. And there's going to be a period where you're completely lost, because you don't know what you want, because you never listened to it. So there'll be a part where you're just like living life floating. You're like, man, what is it that I really want? And that's okay. It takes time. Be compassionate to yourself. So for some time, you'll feel lost. And two things that I really allowed myself to grow that self-love like a plant was joy and curiosity. Let joy and curiosity be your guide at this point. What are you interested in? What is something you always wanted to try, but you didn't because of other people? Treat yourself like you would treat a friend that you love. And you guys have to learn to have fun in life. Don't feel guilty for having fun. Enjoy your life for no reason. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to earn fun and joy. You can do it right now. Even with your symptoms, you can do it right now. You can smile. You could do laughing yoga. You could take time to do something you enjoy. You can not do chores today. it won't be the end of the world if you don't do chores today. So showing up for yourself, and that's how you grow that self-love. And that's the end, my friends. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Well, thank you so much for listening. I know it's a lot longer. I thought it was going to be actually shorter than 40 minutes, but ended up being longer. It's 11 o'clock. I know if people have to leave, I apologize. I will be here for another 30 minutes. I'll be here answering stuff. I first want to, my wife has all the questions. So baby, let's go. Shoot.
Okay, so Jackie asked, was getting back to work hard?
Jackie, getting back to work hard. Yes.
Yes.
I think every part of this process is hard. But when you know, I think the reason my story, I healed within like 3 months. I was fully functional. I was able to go back to work after 3 months. A lot of people are like 3 months, that's crazy. But when I reflect back, before I learned about polyvagal, before that 3-month mark, I didn't know anything about polyvagal. I did a lot of self-love work because I thought I would never heal. So I said, okay, well, I need to start being more positive and just be happy and be more joyful. And that's where I learned about self-love. And I said, okay, I'll never get better, but I want to be happy being sick. I didn't want to be this miserable person because I was being miserable to my family, to my wife. I was a miserable person to be around. So was returning to work hard or easy? When you have, it was not easy because it's new, you get anxiety. But when you practice the polyvagal exercises and you see your symptoms start going away, and you go back to work, you'll notice that some of your symptoms will come back. That's okay. You continue to communicate to your body through the polyvagal exercises to calm the nervous system and to let it know it's safe. But again, self-love is just one puzzle. Polyvagal is just another puzzle. You need many puzzles. I hope that answered. Sorry if I didn't do my best.
Okay.
Next question.
So this isn't really a question, but Ryan says surrendering for him is like giving up. He can't separate the two. Do you have any suggestions?
Yes. You know, Ryan, I had such a hard time with surrendering. I know what you mean. It feels like, you know, it feels like you're giving up on your life if you just accept the life that you're in. And sadly, that's the leap you need to take to start healing. The more you try to control and cause healing, the more you're like, I cannot let go of this life because if I do, I'm hopeless and I have nothing. The more you try to grasp that, the sicker you get. You need to surrender. And there needs to be a level of faith because what helps you surrender is seeing other people surrender in their lives and they healed. And you're like, whoa. So Ryan, if I told you that you're 100% guaranteed to heal within 3 months of practicing this, of giving up everything in your life, mentally, maybe you still have to work a little bit, you still got to do stuff, but mentally, you no longer are worried about work or moving up the ladder or whatever it is that's stressing you out. What if I told you that once you stop stressing about this for 3 months, if you did that, you will be fully healed? Would you do it? That's the faith you want to have. And maybe you don't need so much faith, but you need to be so desperate. You need to get to a level of desperation where you're like, you know what? I have nothing else in my life. I need to give this all up because I have nothing else. I have no hope in anything else. I hope this works. And a lot of people need to get to that level of desperation. I was definitely one of them.
Okay. Nikki asks, how do we do it? How do we practice self-love, Rob?
Okay, so I love the question. Okay, so Nikki, like I said, the last part, I know you asked the question before I answered it, but I think a big part of it is our mindset shift. Our mind needs to kind of change things. So you need to really understand that you're practicing self-hatred every day. If you abuse yourself that way, you have to understand, become aware that you are practicing self-hatred. And once you understand that, you're like, wow, maybe this is not good. This is not right. The problem is that a lot of people say, no, I need to continue being type A because I need to continue working up the corporate ladder or I need to accomplish certain things. I need to. And so if you are too attached to that desire, and you really need to reflect that you're, first of all, in the first place, you're most likely seeking those goals because of you're seeking external validation. Somehow you really got to dig deep into your thinking and your self-introspection. But you start noticing, oh, I'm not really doing this for me. I'm doing it for other people. And so the first part is really hating that you're doing this to yourself. Like, no, I got to stop being so abusive to myself. And then is learning what this self-love is, exposing yourself to it, and making promise to yourself that you'll not allow yourself to talk to yourself this way. Don't allow. That's like the first step. Don't allow when you hear those thoughts, stop. I will not do this to myself because I love myself too much. You need to fight for that. So I hope I answered your question, Nikki. I know I said it all, but so I have next question.
Okay, Maria has two questions. She says, what did practicing self-love on a daily basis look like while you were recovering?
Okay, so Maria, thank you for the question. So the first part was the reason, self-love is so tough is because you're doing it 24/7. So I was reading books about self-love. I read these books and they sounded so weird for me. And they would tell me, look in the mirror. And I would look in the mirror and I would be like, oh my God, I'm overweight. I'm so fat. Oh my God, all this blubber, all this. And I would say, Rob, I would look in the mirror and say, I love myself. I love you. I love you. I would look into my mirror and I would be naked. And I would say, I love you. I love you. You're perfect. I love you. You're amazing. You're strong. And I would just repeat myself to that in the mirror, naked. Because when you're naked, I'm pretty sure we all think we're a little like, ugh, right? But when you're naked, you're there. You're just like, that's where you get to practice it. So that was a big part of it. And constantly fighting those negative thoughts. It was a battle. I felt like a swordsman in a video game. I just had to keep fighting these negative thoughts constantly. And it could be exhausting. But that's the fight you need to take upon yourself. You need to take that fight on of like, I will not allow myself to talk to myself. I will not allow you hear this thought. Boom, boom, a thought. Boom. No, I've replaced it with something positive. Even if I felt it wasn't true, I would repeat the positive thing. Second question, Maria.
How long did it take you to shift your mindset from self-hatred to self-love?
Oh, that's such a good question, Maria. How long did it take? So I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not sure. It took me months. I think I started reading. I think I was reading it took me about 6 months of reading self-love I didn't have someone teaching me this webinar. That's number one. Okay. Like nobody spoke about self-love and the relationship with long COVID. No one. So I had to read millions of books, not a million, but I read so many books about self-love. Some sucked, some were great. And I slowly was realizing that I was practicing self-hatred, and there was no book that taught me this, that I was practicing self-hatred. They were just talking about self-love and things you should do. But now that I'm teaching it, my understanding of it is yes, we're absolutely practicing self-hatred. And so it took time. And I think you asked that question because you're trying to find out how long it'll take you. And so never compare yourself to others. And there's a great time to practice self-love. Allow yourself whatever time it will take to heal yourself and to practice self-love. And so I'll tell you, when I was really sick, I asked myself, I heard these people, oh, I healed in this month. I healed in 5 months. I think mine was one of the quickest. I did not know at the time I was sick. That mine would be one of the quickest. But again, I did a lot of work before the polyvagal. That was the last piece of my puzzle. So you're seeing the 3 months, but it just took 3 months to work on polyvagal exercises. It took me 6 months to work on self-love and all the other things. And I lost my train of thought. So it took me time. And here we go. I told myself, I don't care if it takes 5 years to heal myself. Let's say today, someone told me in 5 years, if you do all this and you're patient with yourself and you allow yourself to slowly heal, Rob, would you be okay with getting your life back in 5 years? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would celebrate it because I thought this was a lifelong disease. Okay. Next question.
Rupi, I'm not sure if I'm saying that his name right, or her name. Can you recommend books on inner child healing?
There are many books.
We're gonna make a list and send it out. We
will make a list. And in the end, by the way, I have a newsletter. Me and my wife created a newsletter because I created a newsletter because I know a lot of people want some updates and want some information that can be encouraging. And I'm going to try to do my best to send this newsletter every week or every 2 weeks. So please sign up for my newsletter. If you're interested, message you.
I'll put the link in the chat.
Oh, my wife is going to put a link in the chat. Click it, and that's how you sign up to the newsletter. You can always unsubscribe. It's through a service called MailChimp. So it's not like I'm doing something shady. It goes through MailChimp. If you sign up for this webinar, I'm not saving your email. All right. This is not a newsletter. This is you signed up. I'm deleting everybody's information because a lot of people keep it. I feel like it's not transparent. If you want to sign up and more information in my newsletter, sign up. I will create a post on books on self-love. And so you'll get that there because it would take some time.
Okay. They also ask, can you talk about how to deal with family members who don't believe your symptoms?
Yes, family members that don't believe your symptoms, create space. Understand that they're your family members. Don't hate them. You know, when I think of certain people that didn't believe in me, I didn't hate them. So don't have hatred in your heart. But I understood that it was unsafe. I felt unsafe around them. So I had to create safety. And the way you practice that is by setting boundaries. So again, we're talking about self-love and practicing self-love and setting boundaries, practicing setting boundaries. So I would create space. If it's someone that lives with you, create space, put your headphones on. Like that cannot be your reason to not heal. You need to figure out in your journey what you need to do to create space. Either you educate these people, so you literally show them video. For my parents, I had to show them videos on PTSD because PTSD, they didn't understand. Long COVID, they were lost. But for PTSD, they're like, how can you be having PTSD? There was like in my culture is not seen as a good thing. It seems like you're crazy. So I had to show them video on PTSD, had to give them pamphlets on PTSD. You can do the same now for long COVID. Back then, long COVID didn't really exist too much. It did, but not really. It was 2020. So for you, there's a lot of information out there. Show them, educate them. If they still disrespect you, you need to have self-love and create a boundary and create distance from these people. And draw yourself closer to people through podcasts, videos, YouTube, by the things you read, books. You draw closer to people that understand you and can help you cause healing.
So that was the last question, but
Last question.
no, that was the last question.
Oh.
But Jackie mentioned in the chat that she put on some weight and she used to be so fit, ran 30 miles a week. You kind of had a similar
So Jackie, you gained weight and you're not
no, just share your experience because you've also went through this.
So yeah, Jackie, don't worry about the weight. Okay, you rather have, this is what I told myself. I said, Rob, would you rather have some weight on you and heal, or you rather be sick and skinny? Right? And then you start asking yourself, why is it that I'm so worried about my weight? Why am I so worried about my weight? When you look in the mirror and you look at that extra weight, what do you tell yourself? What is your self-talk? What is your thoughts? Are they positive? I'm assuming they're negative. Why are they negative? Where did that belief that it is good to be skinny and bad to be fat or to be overweight or whatever it is, where did that belief come from? Practicing self-love is loving yourself now the way you are, flawed and imperfect. And so I had to love myself overweight the way I was. I had to love myself overweight. And you know what? Weight, you can always shed it when you heal. But for now, the next few months, weeks, months, however long it takes you, focus on loving yourself. Look in the mirror every single day and say, I love you. I love you. You look beautiful. I love you. You look beautiful. I love your face. I love your smile. I love your teeth. I love your hair. You're so beautiful. If your child looked like you and your child was overweight, would you say, oh man, you're fat? Oh my God, you're so overweight? No, I hope not. I hope you wouldn't. I hope you would say, baby, you're beautiful. You're beautiful the way you are. Don't worry about the weight. If you worry about the weight, we can exercise together. Let's make it fun. We can always do something, but you're beautiful the way you are. So Jackie, that's how I would talk to myself. Really dig into those beliefs that you have, that challenge those beliefs that you have in your head, the why you think it's even bad in the first place. In Africa, certain cultures in Africa, being overweight is good. Rich people are overweight and being skinny is bad. You're poor. You're seen as a poor person on the street by being skinny. Something to think about.
Okay. I don't know if I'm pronouncing. I apologize if I don't pronounce your name right. Luia.
Louis, my man, Louis.
Oh, Louis. Okay, my bad. Can we say that all this work is centered around changing our beliefs?
Yeah, Louis, to be honest, all this work is really centered around our childhood trauma. I just don't like to talk about it too much because I'm not a therapist and I don't want to get sued. And there's certain therapeutic exercises we can do, but I don't want to recommend it because they can seem very graphic and very bad. But those things did help me. I don't think you need to do the childhood work too much to heal. I did, and there's more I can do. You never can stop. But I think to cause healing, I think this is a great place. But yeah, because childhood trauma, your childhood experience creates the beliefs that you have right now, right? If you were raised by Indian parents in India, you would have completely different beliefs than you did in America, or if you did in Brazil, or if you did. So the way people raise you and the experience that your parents give you creates these beliefs. And these beliefs are pretty much this trauma, and these beliefs are what kind of create your self-talk, your mindset. So childhood trauma, I feel, is the center of it all. But I don't like to talk about it too much because I'm not a therapist. I like to start off with self-love. I talk about it a little bit, the inner child, and I didn't do too much childhood trauma work. I did a lot of reflection, and I noticed my reflection really led me to see that a lot of the things that I was raised on were all lies. Like me having to be perfect was a lie. I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to be perfect to make money. I don't need to be perfect to go up the corporate ladder. I don't need to be perfect to be safe. I don't need to be perfect to be loved. And I'm like, oh, this is a lie. So when I realized, I was like, oh, this is a lie. I'm living a lie. I'm living this lie. I'm like, why am I living this lie? And that's where that self-love comes in.
Ruben says, how much effort does it take you on a daily basis to maintain the positive self-talk?
Thank you, Ruben, for the question. So, the positive self-talk, it was hard. And I think that if you're really struggling with that negative self-talk, I think what really helps is doing that inner child trauma work. And one exercise I'll recommend everybody here who's really struggling with that self-talk is I would do this every day. Not only would I, stop with the negative self-talk, I wouldn't allow myself to think that way, but the way I would think of it, the way I would visualize it, there's an inner child in all of us. And I want you to imagine that inner child being outside of you. Okay. So this inner child looks like me when I was young. You can even take a picture of this inner child and put it somewhere when you're doing this exercise. Look at it. Imagine that inner child. For me, I imagine this 5-year-old sitting down on the floor, and I would see this child and I would ask this child, and this child is a part of you emotionally. And so I would ask this child, what is it that you need? What is it that you're craving? And I remember trying to feel the emotion of this child, and I would break down crying listening to this. And there's one thing that working on self-love makes it extremely hard, because a lot of you don't want to cry. A lot of you don't want to spend 30 minutes crying and breaking down. And sadly, that's what it takes to heal from a lot of this. And it doesn't take once. It doesn't take twice. It takes repetition. And so talking to that inner child, acknowledging that that child is hurt and that child feels broken, and that another part of you, the self, is not giving attention to that child. You've been neglecting that child. You've been trying to bury that child with overworking, with whatever other things, by over entertaining, I speak about, by over drinking, by all these things, because you are so afraid of feeling what that child feels. Because that child may feel broken. That child may believe he's broken or she's broken. And so doing that inner child work is so important to improve your self-talk, especially if you're really struggling. I believe that for me was an epitome of doing that inner child work. Talk to that inner child. Tell that child that you're sorry that you've been neglecting him or her. Tell that child that I love you and you deserve more. And I'm sorry that you had such a crappy childhood. I'm sorry that my parents abused you. I'm sorry that people in your life abuse you, but I, the self, will no longer allow them to abuse you. You deserve to be loved. talk to that inner child, show that inner child love, and you'll start realizing that that self-talk starts improving. So again, I'm not a therapist, and I could go so deep, and there's therapists out there that are so much better qualified than me. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a guy who's learned from personal experience, and I'm sharing it.